Alrighty, so for latex, something very common that I do is I start with a sponge, like a skin makeup sponge, and I dab it in latex, and then I'll start to dab it on my hand, like as you can see on the screen right now. That's what I do. I'm recording this after the main video because um, I had a very loud microphone, and I was listening to music, and I don't, just a lot of things, dogs in the background, and all this stuff. I usually do 2 to 3 layers, sometimes 4 if I really want it to be thick and more convincing and less of a probability to stain, because a lot of times when I do latex, it'll stain. It'll stain my hands. Um, Not always. I mean, it's not the latex that stains. It's actually the blood. But see, the latex, even though it feels like skin, the latex blocks out the latex blocks. It creates a layer over your hand and the blood and prevents stain. And a great way to tell when latex is dry is when you tap it. When you tap it and it's tacky or it sticks to your hand, you'll know when it sticks to your hand. Um, when it's dry and sticks to your hand, it will. It's it's just latex. Latex feels like that. I'm putting on another layer. Right now, this is the fourth layer. I cut it because I have memory issues on my phone where it'll be like it will decide that it does not want to support it doesn't want to record anymore because I don't have memory, and that's not good. Um, and oftentimes when I pause the recording, it's waiting for the latex to dry, or I'll put on small details or move stuff around in my background. Usually only one thing moved in the background right now. This is the fourth layer. I'm sorry. I meant a second ago. Um, I get asked by family and friends all the time, how do I do the latex and how does it look cool? Um, you're learning right as we speak right now. Um, this is this is the usual procedure, though usually I only do 2 or 3 layers of latex on just my hand as it is, not including the layer that I put the one ply Kleenex on. So what I do is I take the Kleenex and rip it, like take one side of the flat side, rip it so it's kind of see-through, and then I put it on my hand. I put it on my hand in a different way than usual on there. Um, Also, you usually see me like messing around with my other hand with my nails. That's because the latex is very sticky, and when it dries, it is fun to get off. Not really. Um, so what I'm doing right now is I am securing the Kleenex on my hand, or the tissue, whatever you call it. I am securing it on my hand, and that way, when it dries, I'm able to rip it. And it'll be a little more convincing. The person who taught me, he told me to rip it and then put it on, like rip a circle out and then put it on. But I thought, I mean, his version works amazingly too. He's the one that taught me how to do this with latex, but his version works pretty well if you're starting out. But this one's simple and works as well. As you can see, I'm ripping it off my hand, and then what I'll do is, of course, I'm not going to get all of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the sponge, the latex soaked sponge, and I was pretty lucky. I did this relatively fast. It dried relatively fast, so I was lucky. Most of the time I go through 2 sponges, 2 to 3 sponges, applying the latex, and then another sponge for applying the makeup. And yeah, so now I'm going to be securing the stray or the still tissuey tissues, not the latexy tissues, but the tissue part where it's like still not soaked in latex. I'm securing that to my hand now. If you do it wrong, like I did here, it will create a really odd texture. Um, Here's the fun part. Oftentimes, I will use cotton to build the wound instead of the way my awesome, amazing uncle taught me, which was getting tweezers and pulling it up, which is a great way to get pinched, and it hurts a little bit. So using the cotton, you don't. Oh, and also using the tweezers and ripping it open also will stain your hand where the blood touches because there is no barrier between because you ripped it open and then it's directly to your skin. So what you do with the cotton part, or what I do, is I will dab it on there. I will dab latex on there, and then with the latex on there, I will with the latex on there, I will then proceed to like dab it gently like that. So then the latex, so then the the cotton will become soaked in latex, and then it will kind of give off that skin feeling too, even though it's a little squishier than if you normally just rip it open like my uncle taught me. Like I said, my uncle's a great teacher, but I find that it's easier to do this my way, like this. Um, Although it is slightly more difficult to secure the ripped. It's slightly more difficult to secure the ripped cotton because it likes to move around. Also, I apologize for the rough cuts and transitions. This is my first video, and like I said, memory issues decided to stop recording, so I had to fix that while recording. Um, it's still pretty easy. Yes, here comes the tweezers. These are the very same tweezers that I made my very first latex with, and I love it. Another really annoying thing with the cotton is it tends to sometimes cotton's good for beginners, but also good for intermediates. But sometimes with the cotton, it will get a hole, and then you can't do anything while it has that hole because it's gonna go through, and then it's not gonna be good, and just all these things. So that happened here. So what I did is I used that sponge and I dripped it. I dripped the latex onto it. Um, and I'm just repeating the same process as I did a second ago or a minute ago. I'm repeating the very same process of spreading the latex and then putting the cotton on it. This bit of cotton gave me a lot of trouble, as you can see. This gave me a lot of trouble putting it on. And though it did turn out pretty good in the end, I did end up putting more cotton on there, where it's uneven to make it more even ish. I mean, cuts aren't gonna be even usually unless you like cut yourself with a knife on accident. If you cut yourself with a knife on accident, then it's gonna have a pretty sharp straight cut. But if you're like walking and then you decide, oh, I'm gonna punch the sheet metal, yeah, and it cuts your hand open, then or just you just randomly cut your hand open on something, it's not gonna be it's not usually gonna be a straight cut. It's gonna be jagged. Ow. I'm moving my light because halfway through this, I noticed that it's not entirely easy for you guys to see me work on this, and it's not going to be easy the rest of the time. Not really. I mean, maybe a little easier now, but it's still dark. The lighting in my room is pretty horrible. All right. So now after this, I had just put on the rest of the piece and the rest of the cotton, and I'm securing it down now, soaking it with the latex sponge. Yeah, my favorite part personally is the blood because man, it is fun. It is sticky and it is horrible. I use Q-tips for blood because I mean, we're not even at the blood yet. We're still putting in the, the latex and getting the entire structure of the wound built. But putting in the blood, I'm just saying now, is pretty fun. Though you have to wait for the makeup to dry, and I use foundation. You have to wait for the makeup to dry, or else if you put the blood down over the makeup, it's gonna It's gonna get makeup colored. um, and yes, stuff will move around because, like I said, I will do things behind the scenes. Um, Putting on the makeup, it's pretty fun sometimes. Oh, I bet you guys just had a heart attack watching that. People who use makeup probably just had a heart attack watching me just because my mom says she uses a small-ish amount. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen her put on makeup because I'm never here. Um, Putting on the makeup's pretty fun, pretty easy. Just a lot of dab, 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 dab. You go through it relatively fast. That's I have gone through 3 tubes of this in the past. I've had it for a while, but you go through it relatively quickly. And I'm putting on more because I don't have enough. Even though you won't really be able to see it, you won't notice looking at the camera and watching. You will not notice. You will notice. Maybe you would have noticed on the thumbnail. The um the makeup I have does not match my skin tone, not at all. But that's okay because I put on so much blood that you don't really need the makeup at all. So there's a Q-tip. There's one of them that I'm using. I also use Q-tips for makeup because there's still spots that the sponge won't get to. And if there's spots where the sponge won't get to, then I need to use the Q-tip that way because it's a smaller object to go into a bigger and to go into a smaller object to go into a small area where the makeup with the big sponge won't get to. That's a mouthful. Um, yeah, the makeup's relatively fun. I guess it's the longest part besides drying, the drying process. This was I took about an hour for this. The spots that are cut, those are the spots where the drying is, and the drying takes quite a while. But in a general sense, it's relatively fun. Ah, yes, the Q-tip rain. The Q-tips. This is where the blood comes in, and I ended up only using around 2 Q-tips. I'm reflecting on this now, thinking that, oh, I did not need to throw. I didn't need to throw 6 Q-tips down. Or 7, actually. I didn't need to throw 7 Q-tips down. The best place to start with the blood is in the actual cut or wound because the makeup may not be fully dry. So when you get the blood in the wound, that's when you that's where you start. And if it and then once the makeup is dry, or once you believe it is dry, you will put the blood, slather it all around. I don't know what's going on here with my lighting. My lighting decided that it's going to destroy itself for some fun reason. My father, a while ago, I did another one of these wounds, except it was on the palm of my hand, which was horrible to do. It was so not fun and not easy, but I managed to pull it off. And yet, I forgot to. The first time I put my fingers into the entire mix was last weekend on my profile picture, or on my picture. You can see, um, you can see the wound, and it's a hand. It is nasty. It is my best, or my second best latex that I have ever done, and that was the first time I ever put my hand, or first time I ever thought of my fingers because I don't know if you're bleeding a lot. I think the blood is going to go on your fingers. And here I am putting the blood on my fingers as we speak. It is pretty fun, pretty hard. The annoying part at the beginning, I remember saying, or I did say that putting down the latex uh, creates a barrier between your hand and your in the blood, so it won't stain your hand. I am completely counteracting what I said and putting, because we don't want stains, right? No, we don't want blood stains on our hands. Well, too bad. We're getting them. We're getting blood stains on our hands because that's what we do. That's what we do in the bloody latex hobby. Man, this is still a favorite pastime. I love doing this. I get asked, what started this? One day I got really bored, and I decided, hey, I have some puzzle glue. I have a crap ton of red markers, and I have some paper towels. So I decided to put some paper towels on my hand, slather glue on it, which is probably not a good idea. First, I would put glue on my hand, wait for that, like give it a few seconds, then put the paper towel over, like wrap it around my hand and my finger, slather that in glue. Or no, I would have to color. I would color it first. I have ruined multiple markers coloring like that. And then I would slather it in glue, and then add another layer of red marker, and yeah, that's how it happened. Also, a really annoying thing, or a cool annoying thing with the latex is when you when you put the when you put the blood on your hands with the Q-tips, the cotton will rip and tear. It will come off, and the cotton does a really good flesh, like a rippy flesh texture. Except it's so hard to put on with your fingers. There's blood all over my fingers, and the more blood you put on your hands, the stickier your hands will get. And the stickier your hands are, the harder it is to get the blood sitting stationary and in a good spot. At the end of this, after recording, as you will see in the thumbnail, I decided to just take out the cotton entirely, and it looks much better, in my opinion. So here's about like 3 minutes of me struggling to get this blood in place, get this bloody torn flesh in place, and just to throw it all away. It's pretty fun. I do enjoy doing this, and I get a lot of I get a lot of great reactions out of it. A friend of mine a while ago, not a while ago, like Monday, had probably my favorite reaction ever, where when I showed them, they don't like exposed bones. And like I said, last weekend I did a wound which had exposed bones. They didn't like it, and they exclaimed "ooh," and they just didn't like it. They thought it was nasty, and that's pretty good. That's what it's supposed to be nasty. So glad to hear that you absolutely hated it. I was very glad to hear that. Yeah. I'm getting frustrated here just a little bit. I'm not actually about to flip my desk because, blood and everything on there. Um, I'm getting frustrated because the ripped, bloody, torn cotton flesh looking thing won't stay in place. So that's one of the reasons why I absolutely just took it out, left it on there, and yeah. Another thing, don't leave your latex out. Don't ever do that. Never. Don't leave your latex out. Don't leave it out in that cup. Don't leave it out in the little plastic cup, because if you leave it out in that little plastic cup, then that little plastic cup's going to get nasty because it's going to have dried latex in there, and you're about to lose latex that you would probably need for future projects, and you will regret it. You will regret that. I have learned from that experience. I only used one cotton ball for this. I'm very surprised. I'm now realizing I always use about two to three. I used to use cotton balls for makeup, and then I thought that's not a good idea, so I used with the brush the makeup sponges were actually for makeup. Yeah, pretty cool. Hope you enjoyed this experience. More is to come.